Hey, this review is going to contain a bunch of spoilers because I want to talk about spoilers. So here are my spoiler-free thoughts before the review actually starts. This movie is not great. I don't want any more of these Star Wars movies. This was entertaining ironically to me personally, but if you are a hardcore Star Wars fan, you are going to be incredibly disappointed with how this movie played out and how nostalgia baity it was. Please don't allow any more of these to exist. Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker, is another Star Wars movie. It's another one. You know what, I'm not a negative Nancy, so let's start with the things that I liked about Star Wars Episode 9. The visual effects were well done. The CGI held up for the most part. There was one or two scenes where you could really tell that Rey was on a green screen, and that was about it. The Knights of Ren, don't know much about them, and that's exactly how I want it to be. They were mysterious and well placed with only a musical cue to indicate that they were arriving. I thought they were probably one of the best ideas in the movie. And Dio. I love Dio. And that concludes the segment of things that I like. Let's talk about everything else now. I think the most glaring issue of Star Wars Episode 9 is its pacing and editing. Some scenes are played out at length, such as when they're visiting Kijimi. There were just too many ideas going on. This issue is apparent at the beginning. It kind of goes away for a little bit as we move to Rey, but then it becomes very apparent in major plot points, such as when Leia passes away. People start crying immediately. Chewbacca has a mental breakdown. I couldn't see it as anything other than hilarious. Like, it was so comedic. The film does want to be taken seriously, but it's very difficult to do that when it hardly feels serious. The plot is entirely forgettable, and I don't say that in a manner that, oh, it was boring. I say that as in I got home from the theater 15 minutes ago and I legitimately cannot remember anything other than the last 30 minutes of the film. Now, I am by no means a hardcore Star Wars fan, but a lot of elements in this film feel like they bastardize Star Wars canon. I am, of course, referring to the Force healing powers. What the hell was that? Did they think that nobody was going to bring up questions of how would this apply to prior Star Wars lore? We're just gonna roll with this. Bullshit. My absolute favorite part of this movie is when Kylo Ren uses his Force to try and heal Rey, and then he does, and then they kiss, and then Rey is like, "Oh no, you're dying now," and then like she doesn't do anything, and he just immediately Force ghosts, which is so dumb. It's so amazingly dumb. I am legitimately fangirling about how dumb this movie is because I have not been this entertained with a movie of this caliber in a very long time. The last two films that I saw in theaters, Ford v Ferrari and 1917, they were relatively serious movies. And so going to see this, which should be treated the same way, I was laughing my ass off, not at the jokes, because the jokes were terrible. I was laughing at the plot. This is amazing. Palpatine. What? There is a moment in this film where a character says, "Somehow, Palpatine came back." And that is the explanation you get as to how he has returned. There's world-building pseudo-explanation as to how he has been kept alive or how he was found. No. This was hilarious. Seeing Emperor Palpatine hooked up to a gigantic robotic arm a la GLaDOS, I was loving it. Like, it's so painfully obvious that this was not planned in any way, shape, or form. This was not set up at all. They had no idea how this was gonna work with Rey or any of that stuff. They just threw this in there last second. JJ was like, "Okay, I'm back. I gotta clean up the mess that Rian Johnson made. Palpatine. This is fan service. This is how you do it, guys. You bring back the Emperor." It felt like they had just handed this to a 12-year-old. It's so immature and silly. It's such a silly movie. I'm trying to actually recall how many moments of nostalgia bait there are in this film. It was kind of astounding. They return to Tatooine. Lando Calrissian is in this. There's a huge dog fight, and they have a certain objective that they have to destroy. Rebel pilots, Luke's X-Wing, Force ghosts, Harrison Ford is alive again. Someone says, I have a bad feeling about this. R2-D2 message relay. The Emperor throws someone into a pit of lightning and then is shortly after vanquished by reflecting lightning into his own face. You know, there's probably more, but that's what I can get off the top of my head, and I don't feel that this movie deserves any more of my brain power. None of the actors in this film look like they want to be here, and this is even further enhanced by the fact that before the film played at my theater, there was a featurette where they were interviewing the cast, asking them what their favorite Star Wars moment is, and everyone was mumbling and groaning, and John Boyega looked like he wanted to jump off of a cliff. Between Daisy Ridley flaring her nostrils incessantly, John Boyega looking like he's about to cry and wants to leave, Oscar Isaac looking like he has shit himself and refuses to step off the set to go to the bathroom. Even Mark Hamill looks like he doesn't want to be there, and he looked like he wanted to be there in The Last Jedi. Look, if you are like me and you do not care that much about Star Wars, then you will probably have a good time with this. Now that Star Wars is where it is, this movie was incredibly ironically enjoyable for me. This is not a good movie, but I enjoyed it. And so for those reasons, despite its unoriginality, despite the poor acting, despite the script being a dumpster fire, despite the editing and pacing being horrendous, I think we can give this one a 5 out of 10.